Welcome to our podcast. My name is Pastor Kevin Robertson, and this podcast is titled This Is My Story. Now, this is a podcast that I've always wanted to do, but never had enough guts to ask this person. And so let me give you some background to it. I've been here since 1999, pastoring this church. And I met my wife here in 1999, and we got married in 2000. And so I really didn't think that I would last long at this church. So they offered me the church home, which we call the parsonage. And I said, no, I'd rather live in the apartments across the street, because if I get fired, or when I get fired, then I don't have to move out of the house at the same time when I'm unemployed. And so back in the 2000s, early 2000s, there was a beautiful young lady that moved in the apartments and started attending our church. And her name was Kristi. And so I want to introduce you guys to Kristi as I knew her. Her name was Kristi Coleman, and welcome. And where do you live now?
I live back home again in Indiana.
Okay,
I moved back here.
Okay, in Indiana. Now, what made you decide to move on the west side?
Okay, so I graduated Purdue in 2000. Before that, in my senior year in high school, I'd always wanted to move out to LA. And when I went to visit there with a choir troupe, we performed at Disneyland.
Okay.
I wanted to move out there, and me and my best friend, one of my best friends, we were going to move out to Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, when we graduate college, we're going to move out to Los Angeles. Well, at the end of college, I was still saying, yes, I'm moving to Los Angeles. And she kind of backed off the plan, decided that she was going to stay at home for another year or stay near home in Indiana. So I just packed everything up in my car as much as I could, in my parents' car, and we drove out there, and I moved to LA on the corner of Venice and Sepulveda. Had a little studio apartment, did not know anyone.
Wow.
So,
that's a big move.
Yeah.
So how did you discover this funky little church?
So I grew up in a Free Methodist church here. I go there again now at Bloomington Free Methodist Church. And so at the time, my Pastor Dan Cloud, he was kind of like a second father figure to me. Right. I called him and I said, I need to go to church. Do you have any churches? This is the Free Methodist Church, wanted to go somewhere where I kind of know the denomination still. And he said, check out Marina Christian Fellowship. It looks like they're pretty small, but it's, it seems like they, have a nice church there. You should check them out. Yeah. So that's how I came on, I think November 5th, 2000 is when I first attended.
So and the church was super small then.
Super small.
Yeah. It just, because if you don't know me, that when I first came, the church not really want me, so I lost half the congregation when I came. So it was a whole another case. So you started coming to a church, and I believe some of the conversations, because to you it was important to get to know the pastor, and you were very open with your story, and to me, I get emotionally attached to people's stories, and so one of your stories was that at 15 years old you lost your father.
Oh, Kevin, I just missed the whole thing because it froze.
Oh, did it really?
Yeah, it froze.
No, I was saying that one of the stories that you told me when I first met you, that you were struggling with the loss of your father.
Yeah.
And so tell me about your dad. Tell me how incredible he was.
My dad was larger than life. He really was. He was close to 6'5". He was funny. He could light up a room. He had this bellowing laugh. He was like a magnet, and or like the sun, and everybody revolved around him in a room. It was pretty. He was loud, but he was caring. Mm-hmm. I just to sit back and watch him work a room was really something. And he wasn't doing it for show or anything. He truly cared about people. And no matter if it was the quietest person in the room or the loudest, he paid attention to every single one of them. Smallest, oldest, youngest, oldest. He cared about everybody and let them know that. So he was he and my mom they got married, and my mom was never supposed to have kids.
Okay.
Because some issues. So I
Right.
have two older sisters that he had with his first marriage.
Okay.
And then when he married my mom, they thought they couldn't have kids. And then here comes Carrie, and then here comes me. So
Oh, wow.
So yeah, my dad had 4 of us girls total.
Okay.
He was just caring. He was a Christian man.
Right.
He was treasurer at our church. He was the tallest person that sang in the church choir.
Right.
He just very, very caring.
And when I remember the way you talked about him, I came to the conclusion that you were definitely daddy's girl.
Yeah. My sister was more of a daddy's girl, in fact, where she kind of clamored onto him more.
Okay.
I was definitely also a daddy's girl, but my mom and I are still very close to this day.
Right.
But my dad was the only one really that could speak to Carrie and have her hear it.
Yeah. No, because I remember Carrie being part of the church. She's strong. She's a strong, opinionated.
Yeah.
You knew.
Oh yes.
You know where you stand with her. You're not going to go, I wonder how Carrie feels about me. Oh, she'll tell you.
Yeah. Yeah.
She'll tell you. So, but the thing is, you got your dad's height.
Oh yeah, I'm the tallest and youngest of 4. That's what I like to tell people.
Okay, how tall are you? Because I just remember
I'm like 5'9.5". Okay. My oldest sister, I think, is like 5. I don't know, maybe pushing 5'4".
How did your dad pass?
He got diagnosed with cancer at the beginning of my 7th grade year. They didn't really know where the cancer was coming from at first. He went in for a hour-and-a-half long surgical biopsy underneath his tongue and his mouth, and he came out like hours later. And he had, tons of lymph nodes removed, a third of his tongue. Like, it was just, they found a lot of this weird cancer, and it's called adenocystic carcinoma. So he treated in its infancy. Like, I'm an oncology nurse now, but back then it's like, what? You're going to the Fermi lab in Chicago and getting radiation treatments. It was just very weird and very strange.
Right.
So,
do you remember the day he left?
The day he died?
Yeah.
Like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
I still remember that. I remember, we had gone to school. My sister and I had gone to school, and he had his breathing change during the day. They called us from school, and we stayed at his bedside all day. Right. We had a friend come visit that night, and the nurse rushed in the room and said, girls, you're needed in the room right now. And I got into the room as he was taking his last breath.
Wow.
And at that point, it was my dad and my mom. They did a great job of kind of like working through, okay, we're going to do this treatment. We're going to do this treatment, and my dad always said, he's not giving up. He's not giving up. And he just, I believed him. And I thought, well, if he's not giving up, he's not going to die.
Right.
So when he did die, it was kind of a huge shock, because I'm like, wait, he's not supposed to die. Right. When you think about someone you love dying, you never fully go there because it's too painful.
Right.
So especially when you're
15 years old.
Yeah. How can I fathom losing my dad, and it just did not seem real.
Right.
So it was the whole week. It was just very, very strange. Like, I felt in times that I was living in someone else's body, just kind of going through the motions. Lots of family, lots of friends. Had more friends than my mom even knew he had, just people all over. And then eventually the friends go home, the family leave, and it's me, my sister, and my mom. So the losses felt more when, the initial shock and all, disappeared. So. Yeah.
Now, the thing is, your sister, and so now it's just the 3 of you.
It's the 3
that are growing up. And I'm telling you, and I said this before the interview, your mother looks like the perfect mother and the perfect grandmother, the lever,
Yeah.
beaver, the cleavers. I mean, she was,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I go, because I do not blow my image of your mother, because I I want a mom like that. I want a
I
mom that
know.
looks like that.
She's a great mom.
So the thing is, she really had to step up,
Oh,
didn't she?
at first, it was so shocking for her too. I mean,
Yeah.
she'd been with my dad for, 20 years, and it was, I tell you how it was. I tell people, and it's no fault of her own. I've never lost a husband.
Right.
But when he died, I have very few memories of my mom the next 9 months.
Wow.
My mom went into deep grieving. I mean, she grieved. My sister and I would wake up in the middle of the night. Let me start. We would come home from work or school or whatever we were doing, and my mom would already be in her bedroom, and she would leave money out on the counter for us.
Wow.
And, she was just so deeply grieving, and she wasn't sleeping. So by the time she got home from work, she was completely exhausted.
Yeah.
And then, it'd be 3 or 4 in the morning, and I'd hear wailing, like her crying, Jerry, Jerry, just crying out to God. Why did you take him? It was just
Right.
painful sobbing. And it was really hard on me and my sister
Of
to
course.
hear
Of course.
that. It was just deep grieving. And Carrie did not deal with it as well as I did. I
Right.
would sit there and cry silently to myself in the room,
Right.
while my sister would just say, "Shut up." It was
Yeah.
really hard for her to hear too.
Right.
Yeah.
No,
So
I totally get it. And so you moved here by yourself, and I think it takes a lot of courage to go, I'm moving from Indiana and I'm heading to California. And
yeah.
and so you were our nurse, right? That's
Yes.
what you
I
wanted.
was not a nurse when I moved there. I
Okay.
worked at Cedar Sinai.
Okay.
My mom went on our show choir trip when I went out there to perform at Disneyland, and I remember yelling at my mom when we passed by Cedar Sinai on our little tour bus. I said, "Mom, I'm going to work there someday." And I
Yeah.
was 17 years old, and she goes, "Yeah, right, Kristi, whatever." Well, I ended up working at Cedar Sinai when I moved out there. I
Wow.
interviewed and I got a job there as a administrative assistant for a 6-physician OB/GYN clinic.
Right.
So it was funny. I ended up where I said I was. Very goal oriented.
Which is good, because I remember that when I first met Carrie, was she came to visit or came to church, and I remember Carrie was in a conversation, and she was again opinionated, complaining how the woman's bathroom looked like a dump. I don't know, and stuff like that. It still looks like a dump, and but she, with her own money and own thinking, she decided to renovate that bathroom.
Yes.
You
Oh
know,
my gosh. And that happened right as soon as she ended up moving here, or moving to LA, in early or late 2001. It was right
right,
after 9/11, I believe.
right,
And she moved out, just to get away from Indiana, and she
yeah.
lived there for 9 months. But one of the first things she did when she got here, to LA, was renovate that bathroom, and she drug me into it. I am not creative. I'm not the let's paint this. This looks fabulous. Like,
Yeah,
I can't
yeah.
renovate a room, but we made so many trips to the hardware store and everything to do that bathroom.
But
I even got tendonitis putting that tile down.
but interesting, because a year later we renovated the entire sanctuary and everything that she did was cleared. But the pictures that she bought are still up there. They're
Oh,
still up in that bathroom. So
oh my
like
God.
20 some years later. So as and because I remember a conversation you and I had that I think, and just correct me if I'm wrong,
Mhm.
you wanted to meet someone. You
Yes.
wanted to get married. And I remember one of our conversations that we had, that I know I told you that I said, you are going to meet someone, and I promise you, the day you get married, that you're going to stand up there in front of your future husband, and you're going to click in your head and go, this is it. This is how I'm going to do it. This is what I've been praying for. This is the answer to prayer. Because I remember a conversation we had with you, but then a few months later, you told me, I'm moving.
That was quick.
Yeah, I was going, okay, now I'm thinking I'm doing this girl's wedding where I'm praying for her to meet her future husband. And it wasn't like down the street. It
No.
was Ventura.
Yeah.
Just, he ain't coming back.
Yeah.
Now, I can't remember because I'm still bitter. Why? I'm holding on something in 2002. Why did you move?
Okay, so I had started going to the Bridge, which was a church up in Ventura.
Right.
And I knew I'd already known that I wanted to go back to nursing school. So I really liked Ventura as a little beach town, and it was like it was a little bit cheaper than at the time than LA, where I was living in LA, and I liked the church. I said, well, I like the nursing school. I like the church. You know, I could see myself living in this town. And then I happened to meet Randy January of 2003.
Okay.
And started dating him. I met him at the Bridge. So
okay.
at that
Okay.
church.
Oh,
so
I didn't know that.
everything kind of fell into place. Yeah.
Okay. Now
Yeah.
the thing is with Randy, you know, you find this picture and I go, Dan, even if I tried with Jennifer and I to sit and look natural like this picture, they would go, I go, you guys look like models. That's what you guys look like. And I'm going, this couple is not normal. And so did you like him when you first met him?
I was actually a little bit miffed when I met him because I was supposed to leave because it's an hour to hour and a half drive. So we would go to church there at Marina, and then Melanie and I usually, or Melanie and you know, Martinez, we would drive up to Ventura, and their church was like at 5 or 6, but sometimes it lasted quite a few hours, and that means that I would not get home. You know, I had to work on Monday morning, and that means I wouldn't get home until way late. So I was, that day, I don't know why, but church lasted way later, and I'm like, I just want to go home.
Right.
And I went up and threw my water bottle away, just frustrated. I turned around, and I almost ran right into him. Like,
really?
It was just like he was right there. I'm like, oh, hi.
So how long did you start dating?
We started dating in January of 2003. So we just saw each other on the weekends because both of us had full-time jobs, and yeah.
Okay, and then when did you guys get married?
We got engaged in October 2003. I moved up there for sure in December 2003, and we got married March 2004.
Okay, and so, I got married in March 2000. Oh, yeah, 2000. I didn't know you got. So the thing is, this is interesting, and this is how narcissistic I am. So I got an invitation to your wedding, which I go, oh, she's getting married now. This is where I should have been excited, but I'm frustrated because I go, I should be doing the wedding, but that's okay. So when I went to the wedding, I'm sitting in the back, and I remember the wedding, and I'm sitting there going, this is an answer to prayer. This is so cool. This is a prophetic word that I got. So if you look at your wedding video, okay, because I know this has happened, you kind of shared your wedding vows. You know, they were like a personal wedding vows.
Yeah.
Right? So you see, from 2003, that's a pretty good memory.
Yeah.
and you began to ask, and you quoted me in your wedding vows, which is something fantastic for any pastor to hear. Years later, this is an answer to prayer. Now, did you say Pastor Kevin? No. You said, someone told me.
I didn't give you credit.
I was thinking, no, not someone. That was me.
Oh, no. I'm so sorry.
No.
I give you all credit.
No,
we're going to have to trademark.
I just go, oh, man. That just cracked me up. And Jennifer was, you know, obviously I go, this is narcissistic. What am I making this about me right now? But it was a gorgeous, beautiful wedding.
Well, what was the quote, or what was the?
Well, it was something that you said. Somebody told me that I will be standing up here facing my future husband and realizing it was this incredible answer to my prayer.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. That's what
And
it
he
was.
was.
Yeah, and he was. And the guy, and not only that, he's very deep down, beautiful person inside. He's a
Yeah,
darn good looking guy too.
I
Not that
think
I'm
so.
picking out your husband, but
Yeah.
you did good. So
Yeah.
then you
Yeah.
decided I want children, right? So what was that journey like when you decided, you know what, we want to be a family, Randy and I?
Well, I went to nursing school and I graduated in 2006. I wanted to get nursing school out of the way first.
Okay.
And so then I knew from working at the OBGYN, I knew quite a bit about the birds and the bees and how it happens. And what,
The scientific version.
yeah. And after 6 months of trying to make it happen, we were not having any luck. So I talked to one of the doctors I still saw down at Cedars, and I said, what's going on? So we started doing just workup for fertility issues, and we did months and months. It's actually 4 years of fertility treatments.
Wow, I didn't know it was that long.
It was horrible. I felt like failure was coming out of me every month. Like it was just heart-wrenching. I can't explain infertility. To long for something you don't like, you can't. I can't explain a longing unless you've been through it.
Right.
It's a very painful type of failure you feel, like as a mom or as a woman.
As a woman,
this is the one thing. Why can't I have this one thing? So I was getting ready to have a surgery in October of 2010. And it was kind of like the last ditch attempt to get pregnant. They were going to go up in there and clean out everything, under general anesthesia. And then if that didn't work, then go do IVF, which is in vitro fertilization. And that's like tens of thousands of dollars and everything. So, I was still steadfast in my faith. But I noticed that my relationship with God was, I yelled a lot. Like I was like a petulant little kid, like stomping my feet. Why is this not happening? Why am I, this is this one thing I've always wanted. You've taken away so much of me, and just.
Oh, absolutely.
It was hard. So
and the thing is, you see mothers walking around with their kids or 4 kids, and you're going, come on.
Oh yeah. In the meantime, all these people that I knew, including my own sister Carrie, they were getting pregnant accidentally. It's like, really? Like what? It just did not seem fair, and
it's not fair. It's not fair. I mean, just to be real, it's not fair. But then life ain't. So
yeah. So I was sitting in my car before my surgery. And it was probably 2 months before my surgery, and I was sitting there, and I call it my lab Bible, my life application Bible, was in my car, and I had stopped reading it. I had another like little devotional book that I mainly read, but I had that in my car for some reason, and I picked it up, and out falls a bulletin from Marina Christian Fellowship.
Oh, really?
And I don't even remember. It was a sermon you did on God's timing. And I opened it up, and in the inside, I'm going to cry saying this, but on the inside, I had written up top in my own handwriting, and I had underlined it twice, God's timing is always perfect. Okay. And then underneath, I wrote Romans 12:12. Oh, wow. and so I'm like, okay, that's me from how many years earlier? I mean, this was 2010, so this could be 10 years earlier. I still have that, that bulletin too. God's timing is always perfect, in my own writing on one of the bulletins from MCM. Wow. And your sermon must have covered Romans 12:12. Do you know what Romans 12:12 is? You probably do.
Yeah, therefore,
joyful in
hope, patient in affliction,
and faithful in prayer.
Which is my that is a scripture that got me through the divorce
Yeah.
in 1995, because that scripture is so powerful. Because being joyful and hope, like I can have joy in the midst of this,
Yeah.
because of hope. And
Yeah.
yeah, trust me, I have divulged that scripture. And
Yeah.
now the thing is, I've never heard you say that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
So it
Okay.
was from one of your sermons. So I felt God had used that, years later, here I am. It just falls out of my Bible. And it's
Right.
exactly what I needed to read at that time. So
Wow.
it made me, it made me stop. It made me pause. It made me like, okay, that's God.
Right.
There's no
Right.
other way to explain it. That's God.
Right.
So I went in for my surgery, and the following month, or after like 45 days, I had my last fertility treatment, and I found out I was pregnant with my beloved
Wow.
next to me on the floor on December 17th of 2010.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so, but the celebration, in a sense, was kind of short-lived in a way. Like
Yeah, I call my pregnancy my 9-month reprieve. I worked all the way up to the end. I had great energy. I worked as an oncology nurse in Santa Barbara.
right,
I had great energy. I was working 12-hour night shifts a week up until August. Gosh, I think I went on leave on August 19th.
right.
And I had little Rain Estelle Alderson on August 22nd.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was my 9-month reprieve, my
And
pregnancy.
and so, when did you discover, or when did you find out that your daughter was having some difficulties?
Right away, probably within the first week or two, she was having trouble gaining weight and everything, and she just was not eating. Like, I imagine newborns, like I was always told, newborns eat, sleep, and poop, like
Right.
repeat times, all day.
Yeah.
So my child would not eat, and she'd eat a little bit, but then she'd start crying and not want to eat anymore. And then she
Right.
was not gaining weight. Well, so I had her at the pediatrician's office all the time, like with weight checks and everything. And September 20th, September 20th got around, and she was not acting right. She had a 10:30 feeding in the morning, and she was not acting right the rest of the day. I did not understand like something's wrong with this child. I was on
Right.
the phone with her pediatrician. We were prescribing meds because they thought that she had some kind of gastric reflux.
Right.
And long story short, I grabbed her. I came in. So I have this nurse intuition that,
Right.
again, can only be explained if you're in the medical field. You can walk in a patient's room sometimes and like, something's not right here. Something's going down.
Right.
You just have this feeling. So it was about 9 o'clock at night, and I was brushing my teeth to go to bed, and I had her laying in her little bassinet thing. And I walked in the room, and my heart felt like it was stopping. I'm like, that feeling your patient's going to crash went through my head. And I'm like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And so I just grabbed her, and I just left Randy asleep on the couch. I was just like, I'm going to the ER. Something's
Right.
wrong with her. I just know it.
Right.
And we took off and got to Cottage Hospital, which was about, usually on a good day, 35-minute drive. I got there in like 25 minutes. And within 20 minutes of arriving, okay, so this is another God thing. I called my friend on my way up there, and she's a nursing supervisor. I said, how long is the wait? She goes, oh my gosh, we're packed. I don't know. I said, well, something's wrong with Rain. I just, I bring her up. She goes, okay, well, just tell them that you're here and all that. So I got to the ER, and there's like literally like 2 other people waiting in the waiting room. I'm like, this is not packed. And I got to triage. I said, something is wrong with this baby. And she was gray by then. And
Right.
so the lady in triage, she couldn't get any kind of vitals on her. I mean,
Right.
it was obviously that little Rain, it was obvious that she was not doing well. She was still alive, but she was not doing well. So she opened the door behind her, and it was like the whole pediatric critical care team was there waiting for us.
Wow.
Like, they grabbed her and they started immediately working on her. And 20 minutes later, she was on life support. And the doctor came in. I had to watch them. She was coding. Her little heart, her little lungs were stopped breathing and everything. And when they were trying to intubate her, I was told later that I screamed this guttural scream. I don't remember doing it, but just
Right.
watching this little baby, you know. And the doctor came up to me, he goes, I don't know what's going on. I think it's her heart. I don't know if I can save her. And that feeling of like, oh my God, like this is real. Again, out of body experience. Like you don't think it's happening to you.
Right.
And Randy got there short time after. We spent the whole night there. And at 7:30 the next morning, we had already secured a bed. They were trying to get a helicopter up from CHLA to get us down there.
Right.
They found out in the middle of the night, the cardiologist was looking at her echocardiogram from home, watching the echo tech do it in the hospital. And they found out that, yes, she has a heart defect, you know, so they came in, we were up all night. And 7:30 next morning, we were holding hands, watching our little girl get whisked off with this huge medical team from CHLA.
Right.
What I didn't know, was that I found out later from another friend who's a nursing supervisor. She said that the whole pediatric ICU was closed down that night because they didn't have any patients.
Oh, wow.
And they said that the respiratory therapist is always there.
Right.
And the critical care physician for peds was sleeping in the sleep room or whatever, or at his office or whatever. And so they said that at 45 minutes before we showed up at the ER, they had a call come in from a hospital up north saying, we're transferring a kid down who fell out of his high chair. Right. And so they brought in the team. The last member of that team clocked in 3 minutes before we showed up in triage. Wow. And so they were literally waiting in the ER, waiting for this other kid. And instead they got us. And that other kid did not show up. That ambulance bringing that other kid did not show up until the next morning as Rain's ambulance was leaving the ambulance bay. They brought in that other kid. So we had the whole team with us all night. Wow. And so that was definitely a God thing too.
Well, yeah. Well, in hindsight, you get it's a God thing, but going through that and seeing your daughter, the celebration, and there's no way in the world I can imagine, because Jennifer and I don't have children. That has to be the most hopeless feeling ever.
Awful. It was awful. We went home, like the nurse grabbed my cheeks, just looked at me in the eye, and she goes, you need to go home. Right. You need to get your stuff. You're going to be down at CHLA for a while. She's in good hands. You need to go home and prepare for a long hospital stay.
Right.
Okay. So, going on no sleep since 6 o'clock the morning before I got home. My poor husband was just picking me up because walk in the door, it's just baby stuff everywhere. And, I collapsed because of exhaustion and just collapsed because of tears and everything. But we got down there. I had posted on Facebook throughout the night. And once we found out it was a heart defect, I said that, turns out Rain has a heart defect. We're transferring to CHLA for heart surgery, please pray, whatever. Right. So I guess you saw that.
No, it was CHLA is the Children's Hospital in LA.
Los Angeles, yeah.
Los Angeles, okay.
Yeah.
Let's see, I'm trying to sound intelligent, knowing that I know what CHLA.
You got
it. so they flew her to the Children's Hospital.
They took her on an ambulance, down to CHLA. Right. So we got to our room. There's a medical team around her. I couldn't even see her working. Right. And I'm sitting over with Rain in our little cot area next to the window, just like watching this all transpire. It's very different being a nurse on the opposite side. Everything. I'm an adult oncology nurse, and here I've been thrown into this pediatric cardiology, thing. And I'm trying to think of it as a mom, but also as a nurse, like what the heck is going on? Yeah. So I'm sitting there just watching all these people like do their thing with my daughter, and in walks this woman, and she kind of talked to somebody, and then she just zeroed in on me, and she walked over to me. And again, this is very emotional because it's the first time I felt okay, like that whole morning. And she came over and she goes, "Are you Kristi?" I said, "Yeah." And she introduced herself.
Sylvia.
Yeah. As Sylvia. And she said, "I woke up this morning and there was my pastor had sent out an email to the church, like a prayer chain. And she said, I've been praying for your daughter all morning." And she said, and to get to work, and I'm been assigned to her. And so the doctor that's taking care of my little girl is now being, has been praying for her already before even knowing her.
No,
So
it's interesting. From the same church that you got that little note from.
Yeah.
In God's planet.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's just, you can't make this stuff up.
Sylvia is one of the head doctors at Children's Hospital. She's a good friend with my wife. Yeah. And, it's because I remember thinking, you cannot write this. You cannot write this. You can't. The thing is, for something like that, you just need a personal connection.
Yeah.
And Sylvia is such a beautiful person.
Oh my gosh, just wonderful. She cared, you could tell she's a caring doctor, but she would hug me. She would, she just had this calming presence, and that's exactly what I needed. But I just felt like that's the first time, like, I felt myself just like, okay, God is in this room right now. I just feel like it was amazing. When I tell people the testimony that is Rain, I have to tell them that story. Not only the story about how the medical team was there waiting for her seemingly in the hospital to start working on her, but also this doctor comes in and says, I've been praying for your daughter since I woke up this morning, and like, now I get to take care of her. And she didn't even know me, So in a city of 3 point whatever million people.
No, it's crazy. It's almost like the Lord meeting the medical needs and the healing of your daughter, but also meeting the emotional and spiritual at the same time. So your daughter had open heart surgery.
She had actually what's called closed heart surgery.
Okay.
They didn't have to go through her. Yeah, they did. You're going to learn something. They didn't have to go through her chest. They cut her side. Okay. So they went through her rib cage on the side. You can. She had coarctation of the aorta, and you can reach the aorta better if you go through the side of the chest instead of up and down the sternum. So she had that, and she got discharged 2 weeks later and back home with us.
Right. And the thing is, and she's been perfectly fine, right?
Yeah, she had to have another surgical procedure at 4 months old. She had to go to UCLA this time for a angioplasty. There's Rain on the left. Ever since, like, she gets her yearly checkups, but she's been fine. They told me that there's a really good chance of her being on blood pressure medications the rest of her life. And she got off of them at 20 months.
Wow.
So it's just, so she's a healthy girl.
So just remind us, which one is her? The one
on the left, in the stripes.
And the stripes. And this is her cousin.
That's Kendall,
This Kendall, her cousin, which is Carrie's daughter.
Yes.
And so she's gorgeous. She is just a sweetheart. So therefore you can now the thing is, you have been saying, like, you get to the point of yelling. I mean, because the loss of your dad, then you go almost the loss of your firstborn, and stuff like that. That can you tell from those two things that your spiritual walk has been different? Because both of them were scary. 15 years old, and then it's almost like your love for your daughter, your newborn. It's like there's a pain that you're right. That scream that you can't remember. That is just to me. Just thinking about that, I lose it, because it's almost like a mother losing a child.
Yeah.
No,
I thought she was out. I mean,
and so then you moved to Indiana.
Yeah.
And I know that you're when did you moved to Indiana 3 years ago?
No, it was July of 2018.
Okay, so only 2 years ago. And so and how old's your firstborn?
She is 8 now. Okay. So she was 6. Yeah, so, almost 7.
Now, I don't know this. Did you want to have a second child right away?
So
I can't handle this emotionally.
Yeah. So the first few years, when you have a sick child, it really doesn't number on your marriage. Like, it was, having 8 years of alone time with your husband or your partner, and then
Yeah.
having a child, it puts a lot of stress. And then having a child who's critically ill,
It
puts a
makes
lot
or
of stress.
breaks marriages. It
Yeah.
makes or breaks.
And it was really hard. Our first year after Rain was born, I'm not gonna lie, we were barely swimming above the surface. Like, we'd
Okay.
come up for air every once in a while, and
Right.
hi, I remember you, and then go back under. I mean, it was
Yeah.
just, and but after that first year, we had a really good heart to heart, and we kind of got in the groove as a family. And
Right.
she started communicating, which is baby cries and everything. And when they first start communicating with you, and like lighting up when you walk in the room, and
Mhm.
it's easier for you to have a relationship with that
Right.
child,
Right.
like a meaningful
Right.
relationship. So, as Rain got older, it was a lot easier, and,
Right.
not as stressful and stuff. And then we didn't want any more kids. I
Right.
said, we survived. We all survived. We
Right.
survived as a family. We're fine. As Rain grew older, we realized, okay, she's going to live, and she's okay, and
Right.
we're okay.
Right.
And, in 2017 we started trying, or 2016 we started, okay, let's see what
Okay.
happens,
Yeah.
knowing that we probably would end up back in a fertility treatment.
Right.
So we started trying, and so we ended up back in fertility treatment in early 2017.
Okay.
My mom had two very close losses to her, my grandma, and then my mom's best friend died suddenly early that year.
Right.
And I love my mom so much. I'm very close to her.
Yeah.
And those two deaths really aged her. Like, it kind of opened my eyes to, like, oh, my mom's getting older too.
Right.
What am I going to do when she gets older and she needs me?
Right. Right.
Carrie is never a caretaker per se. Like, I'm the nurse,
Right.
like,
Right.
it would be my responsibility. So, but in 2017, even with fertility treatments, we had 3 very painful miscarriages that year. And we were thinking about moving to Montana to have a little ranch or whatever,
Right.
but we decided to move to Indiana instead. We would be closer to family. We didn't want to move to no man's land, Montana, where
Right.
Rain wouldn't have any brothers or sisters or cousins or anything.
Right.
So we thought, let's move to Indiana. We can get property. We can be closer to family. It'd be really great. So that's what we did. We decided to move to Indiana.
Okay, so you moved to Indiana, and I'm telling you right now, we could spend a lot of time on just miscarriages, because my wife had a miscarriage, and I just she would be 14 years old this coming January. So people that have miscarriage, you know how old if you kept you.
Yep. Yep.
There's an emotional connection with miscarriages, and I remember when someone had a miscarriage, and I said, "I'm so sorry," and I thought I was caring, I thought I was understanding. Then we went through it.
And you had no idea the pain.
No, and the constant thinking of it, like, realistically, we could have 5 children. And you have a name, a name of the child, and stuff, and so it's just every once in a while when I see a 13 or 14-year-old girl, I'll go.
It makes you pause, and
yeah, it just makes you go, oh, I wonder how that could be. So I'm giving validity to even the miscarriages. I mean, that's hard.
Yeah.
That's
well,
really hard.
It was hard on Rain too, because
Yeah.
she's very perceptive. She's a very perceptive child. She knows when someone's hurting. She's very compassionate. And so she knew mommy was hurting. So we ended up telling her. And I read something online that to help guide kids through grief or through, miscarriage, loss, and everything, that to name the babies that you lose, give them names, so you could talk about them being in heaven. And so we did that. We had her name them, and it's Flower, Leaf, and Flutterfly. She named them. So we talk about them still, how, and it was very healing. She has made up songs. She's made up poems. I mean, she's a writer. So
our daughter was named Faith.
Oh, Faith.
And so it's just because it challenges your faith. And I thought, okay, let's name. And you're right. You have to name them because you have to make them personal.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, because
They did exist. Yep.
there's emotional connection already there.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
to me, I'm making this interview about me now. That I do have a daughter in heaven. I
Yeah.
do. I believe that the three miscarriages, they're in heaven,
Yeah.
and our miscarriage in heaven. So when did you become pregnant again?
Well, we weren't trying. We were forbidden, but we weren't trying. And I was in my 40s, and I had already been told after I had my 3 miscarriages in 2017 by 2 different doctors that there's no way you can get pregnant. The chances of you getting pregnant are near zero. You're going to have to spend thousands of dollars on doing IVF if you want to have a baby. And I did not feel right doing IVF.
Right.
And I said, you know what? We're just going to be a family of 3. So we weren't trying. And I found out on early September last year that I was like counting my days and that's weird. So I had to dig through boxes that were still packed from our move
Right.
to find my one pregnancy test, and I took it and I almost passed out right then. I yelled for Randy, and he said, I remember his words. He said, "Oh my gosh, well, don't get too excited. We know how this has ended before." So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to tell Rain, not going to tell anybody.
Right.
We're not telling a single soul.
Right.
And the first person we wanted to tell if it was real was Rain.
Right.
So we waited until we were, I think, 10 weeks, and we sat Rain down and we have a little video of it. We told her, and she was like, "Are you serious?" She was very, she said, I think that she said something like, "I don't know if maybe I still want to be an only child though."
That's funny. So when was the due date? When was the due date for
May 13th?
May 13th.
May 13th.
Which is interesting because it was on the close to the day your dad died, right?
Yeah. So it was, and because of my age, because I was 41.
Right.
And so, they said, well, we don't ever let elderly mothers, whatever.
Elderly.
I'm an old mom. Geriatric pregnancies.
Okay.
We don't let them go past 39 weeks usually. I'm like, oh, so that puts me at May 6th. I'm like, wow, that, in the back of my mind, I'm like, wow, that's the day they buried my dad. May 6th kind of, is a big day for us.
Right.
And then, and then started joking around about that week, how it would be awesome.
Yeah, because I think you told, I can't remember how, Carrie, your sister, said it would be nice to something about that date. What did you say?
I look back how many times as it got closer and closer. Carrie was always really excited about this pregnancy. She knew what kind of a little miracle this was, and we didn't know at the time. Like, she was just so excited. She had the one daughter, and she was, she always wanted another baby. She never had another baby.
Right.
And, so she was so excited, and she knew our struggles with infertility and how much of a miracle our Rain was. And so when we started talking about dates, she goes, "Oh my gosh, wouldn't it be awesome if you had your baby on May 2nd? And I have several texts. We talked about on the phone, several messages saying, May 2nd, May 2nd. Okay, tell her to hold in there until May 2nd. Or ask your doctor if you can get induced on May 1st so that you can have her on May 2nd, And so it was kind of a joke, going, and I actually did ask my doctor if I could be induced on May 1st. So it was kind of funny.
But the thing was your sister wanted to change the memory.
Yeah. She said, let's take back the day. Let's take back the day. We're going to, we want to make May 2nd into something good, because May 2nd is the day my dad died in 1994.
Okay.
Carrie always grieved that week. She always, she never fully grieved our dad.
Right.
She was the social butterfly. She didn't really cope well with his death. I turned to my friends. I turned to God. She ran away from God. We processed his death in very different ways in a very different time. So she didn't really start acknowledging like the processing of his death, or acknowledging her grief for like 4 or 5 years after he died.
Wow.
So it was a very different way that we thought about it. But you know, we wanted to turn that week into something good. She wanted the baby to be born on May 2nd.
Right. Were you worried that this baby would have heart problems? Did that cross?
We actually we did the Harmony blood test screening. Again, old moms, so they offered it to us at 10 weeks along, and they it came back that our baby was probably going to have Down syndrome. And so we knew early on that, you know, okay, she has Down syndrome, probably has Down syndrome. We opted not. It was kind of sad because like when I was there, she is little Callie Anna. When we were told by 3 different people within an hour and a half, I had 3 different phone calls the day I found out she probably has Down syndrome when I was pregnant. 3 different phone calls that suggested termination. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. Like, stop telling me. I don't know who needs to be told, but I am not, that's not even an option for me.
Right.
Oh, okay. Well, so we opted not to get an amniocentesis or another test called a CVS because we didn't want, again, like if there's a chance that something's going to go wrong, it's probably going to happen to me. So I'm like, yeah, I know there's a very low chance of miscarriage if you have these tests, but I don't want to risk anything. Right. So we said, we're just going to wait until birth. We had our anatomical ultrasound and echocardiogram when I was 20 weeks pregnant with her. And it showed that she was developing perfectly. She had none of the markers for Down syndrome and everything. We're like, well, if she has Down syndrome, then at least her heart's okay. At least her, you know, she has everything that she's supposed to have, and it's in the right place, and it looks like it's functioning. So we did have an idea that she had Down syndrome, and at birth, of course, she had echocardiogram, which was normal newborn echocardiogram. So yeah, no heart defects. So.
Okay, which is fantastic. So the thing is, you're celebrating. You're excited about this. Carrie's excited about changing the date and stuff. I'm sure your mom's excited about. Oh, we're going to have another. Because grandparents love having grandkids.
Oh yeah. And now that we're closer, we're like, oh my gosh, this is great. My parents, you know, my mom and stepdad. My mom got remarried to Gary. Which I love him completely. But it was really exciting because now they get to do the whole baby face over again.
It's funny. No. And the thing is, I've noticed that, like, when you become a grandparent, you're not like when you raise your kids. You're the most giving, understanding, non-disciplining. The kid gets away with anything.
Oh, you want cookies for dinner? That's fine. Here's 10.
So, but anyway, so you're getting to the point of this incredible celebration. You're having your second born baby. So
and then COVID hits. No, then the pandemic happened.
So tell me the day that the day before, or the day that she was born.
So my sister and I talked every day. She lost her job at AT&T in early February. So she was at home a lot because COVID, the pandemic started, and so they shut everything down. So Carrie was quarantining with her daughter at home, and my brother-in-law, Jim, they were staying safe at home because they wanted to come and help out with Rain and to see the new baby when she was born and everything. And my parents were doing the same thing. They were staying at home, as was everybody else in that period. So I talked to Carrie multiple times a day for those last couple months, and she was happy. She was, the stress of losing her job kind of dissipated. All her relationships seemed to get better. Like, she wasn't fighting with my mom. She was, she got to spend time home with Kendall, my niece. And, it was, if something good could come out of being locked down and losing your job, well, that was it, So May 1st was like any other day. And I found out later she was at home, spent most of the day on the couch, and my niece Kendall was there with one of her friends. And then May 2nd, I woke up at midnight because my daughter, out of the blue, puked in her bed. She started coughing and she puked. I'm like, you're not sick. Why are you puking? And I only texted Carrie saying, your niece just puked. Here I am, 9 months pregnant, cleaning up puke at midnight, and on May 2nd. But I didn't text her. I went back to bed, and I woke up to my phone buzzing on May 2nd. It was around 8:00 in the morning, and my mom had called me, and she left a 3-minute long voicemail. Well, I knew that she probably called me and then just left left her phone on accidentally. Well, I checked the voicemail and said, we can't tell. My mom was crying, and I hear her saying, we can't tell anyone until Kristi knows. Oh my God, and I'm like, what is going on? So I called her back, and she said, have you talked to Randy? And I guess Randy had already talked to my stepdad, but Randy was trying to allow me to sleep longer, and trying to figure out what he was going to say to me when I did wake up. But I hung up the phone, and I ran out, and immediately.
Right there's your gut, just like.
Oh, immediately, like, I just felt like I was going to puke, like this isn't real, like, and immediately contractions started. I mean, it was just like someone punched me in the gut, and it was like, it was go time. Like,
but the thing is, you didn't find out, you were just anticipating what it was, but you didn't really know yet until you talked to.
No, I talked to my mom, and she said, Carrie died. I said, Carrie, like my sister Carrie? And she goes, yeah. My mom's like, we're getting to Corey right now. You need to go talk to Randy. He knows. So I hung up on her and went and talked, just flew open my bedroom door and like, Randy, what is going on? And so he ran up the stairs and told me, and just held me while I cried. I mean, I just collapsed and just started crying, and I mean, just contractions. I mean, just.
Oh no. And the thing is, because when we found out, that day, it's almost to the point where you can't accept it. You're asking tons of questions, like, I don't get it, I don't understand. I mean, she's in her 40s.
She was healthy. We thought, what in the world? Like, she had ovarian cancer back in her mid-20s. That's actually what she was diagnosed when she lived in LA by one of our doctors, but they, when you were there for that, they but she wasn't ever good about getting her checkups and everything. So, all these things are going through my mind saying, well, maybe her cancer came back and she didn't know it, and and I knew, I didn't know why. I know she was, she had some health problems last September that she was supposed to follow up on, but she never did. Even though I told her I would come and take her to the doctor, I would pay for it, I would, whatever you need, I will be there. And she never did. So
what happened? What happened to your sister?
So the autopsy, we did not know. They thought maybe it was her heart. They saw some weird heart things on the regular autopsy. And then when the pathology and the slides came back, it showed that she had a condition. There's Carrie. She had a condition called ARVD, which is arrhythmogenic right ventricular dysplasia, which is a fancy term that basically your myocardial cells, your muscle of your heart, they start turning into fat. And then, which means your heart starts enlarging, which means it does not have it doesn't pass through the electrical signals properly to beat properly. So she was having some arrhythmias back in the fall, and never checked back in on them with a cardiologist. So it ended up being cardiac arrest. She died in her bed that night, shortly after she went to bed, probably on May 2nd. She, we didn't know she had this heart condition is hereditary. It's passed along. So, I've been getting worked up for it, all these heart tests. And her daughter has to.
Let's go back. So now you're okay. You just get this information, okay? And no, Kristi, my wife was talking about you, and she said, Oh, good night. Kristi has not had an easy life at all. You know, she was just feeling for you. So now you're having this incredible, joyous child that the day you're having, celebrating, oh, we're going to change the date. We're going to change the date about this will be this miracle baby being born. Your sister was so excited. Then just out of blues, she loses her life. And then you go into this crazy labor. So this is where I was feeling. I was going, how in the world does Kristi experience this incredible joy at one time that this child is this miracle, but yet I just lost my sister the same day.
Um, I honestly, like, when I was waiting for my sister Jana, my older sister Jana,
Right,
to drive down, and it takes her an hour to get here,
right,
because my mom was supposed to watch Rain, and or my sister was, Carrie was supposed to watch Rain, and now we
right.
had no one that,
Yeah,
you know, to watch Rain, so had to wait for my sister Jana to get here, and all that I kept on thinking, I was just on the floor most of the time, just saying
right,
this can't be happening, you know. It was,
right,
and I just kept on rubbing my tummy, you know, like my pregnant belly, just saying, please just stay with me, you know, because at that point it was just, I was almost hugging my own self, you know, I'm
right,
hugging this child inside me, you know.
right.
um and then my 8-year-old, of course, is grieving her aunt. She was like, what's going on? And you
Yeah,
know, and she's bawling and I'm trying to hug her,
right,
Randy's trying to run around getting everything together. It was just mass chaos.
right,
In the midst of that, I'm just grabbing onto my, you know, my abdomen, just like, it's going to be okay, you know, we're going to be okay, you know, just praying, God, you know, we're going to be okay. I don't know, it just seemed like a horrible nightmare. It was, I can't explain. It just, I felt like I had no blood going to my brain at all. I mean, it really didn't. It was just, felt dizzy, just felt awful. So I talked to my OB doctor and they said, you need to get into the
right,
hospital. So um, I was bawling the entire time. I mean, I was wailing, as you can imagine, like all through labor, you know. My blood pressure went sky high. I usually have really nice blood pressures,
right.
like they're
Of
perfectly
course.
fine. And my blood pressure skyrocketed, and so they finally said, we're not letting you go home, we're gonna
Right,
induce you the rest of the way. We think you're in labor, but we're not sending you home, so we're gonna induce you the rest of the way.
right, right,
And my labor, besides wailing and crying in the middle, and having to wear a mask the whole time,
right,
it was a great labor. I mean, it
yeah,
was,
right,
she was delivered safely. I had minimal pain because the emotional pain
right,
was competing with the physical pain. And I don't know, you know, labor pain is supposed to, giving birth is supposed to be the most painful thing.
yeah,
But I found out that's not the most painful thing, you know, doing the emotional pain, you know, while you're in this horrible physical pain,
yeah,
and you're just wailing and you're just praying and you're just, you know, getting phone call after phone call, like people asking if it's real. And I just
yeah,
feel like it wasn't real, you know?
no.
So
Probably to this day you don't think it's real.
no,
Because I'm
every
assuming,
day,
yeah,
every day.
because I'm assuming you just want to pick up the phone. You
Oh,
don't,
all the time. I
yeah,
have to catch myself because, you know, I Carrie and I always, did you hear what mom did? Or, you know, like this typical sibling thing. Like, have you talked to mom? Or, you know what, your niece did, you know, like all, like the typical
yeah,
sibling, you know, thing.
right,
Or I had something funny to show you, or,
yeah,
you know, listen to what Rain just said, or, you know,
right,
that was gone. Like it was such a big part of, like, I took advantage of it. You know, I
yeah,
feel like you know, it's gone now and it's palpable. Like
yeah,
that ability to call her
right,
multiple times a day. I want to text her,
yeah. No,
send her something,
I
and I
totally
can't.
get it. Yeah, and you can't. Um, your mom lost her husband,
Yeah.
and you were saying she battled, very severe depression.
Yeah.
And, one of my heart goes out not only that you lose your husband, but I think one of the greatest pains ever is losing a child.
Yeah, there's
And so you got close to it, but your mother lost her child.
oh
I don't know. How did your mother have the strength to live? I mean, I don't know. I met your mother a couple of times when she came to visit here, so I don't know your mother, but my heart just goes out to her. Is she
my mom.
okay? Is no.
She's not okay. I
Okay.
mean, she is she's grieving. I can't explain the way she's grieving. She is deeply hurt,
Right.
saddened, just she's very thankful that she and my sister had these great
Right.
conversations the last
Yeah.
few months.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things to be grateful for. There's a lot of things that my mom would have wished she known,
Yeah.
different things that we've found after Carrie has passed,
Right.
even the heart condition, like, as a mom, she's sitting there going, I should have done more, and
Right.
there's nothing she could have done. Carrie was 43 years old. She made her own decisions. I you can't you can't imagine it until you're in it. And then even if you're in it and you have that experience, it's like you can't really know that person, like what they're truly experiencing, because everybody has their own relationships, everybody has their own way of looking at things. My mom is a very strong Christian,
Right.
and that's what she will tell you keeps her going. I mean,
Yeah.
she believes in heaven. She believes my
Right.
sister's there with my dad.
Right.
She is going through grief. She will be going through grief for quite a while. It's hard for her to imagine the rest of her life without her daughter, and
No,
it's not
no.
it's not supposed to happen.
Yeah. It wasn't supposed to happen. You
No.
know. I
Well,
want.
to us, it's not supposed to happen.
Yeah.
it,
No.
my daughter asks a lot why this happened. Why did Carrie have to die? My Rain is, as I said before, she's very perceptive. She knows when people are hurting, but she's also very expressive, and she can express her emotions very well.
Right.
And she just, why, mom, why? And so I was just praying of what I could tell her that would give her peace instead of, I don't know,
Yeah.
like, I don't know, I like God gives and he takes away, but that just sounds awful, when
Right.
you're trying to explain grief. Like,
Yeah.
well, he gave it to you, now he's gonna rip it apart. It's like that's not quite, that doesn't, God is love, and that doesn't express God's love,
Right.
saying that. So what I tell Rain, and what I tell myself too, is that last fall, we were like, how is this happening? Like, why is this happening? Even Carrie and I had tons of conversations. Like, I can't believe this is happening. Like
Mm.
all this stuff. And I look back now, and, God could not, we live in a fallen world.
Right.
God gave us our bodies. We're supposed to take care of our bodies.
Mm.
When, and that comes with the symptoms too. If you
Right.
have pain, if you have, like as a nurse, it's like, I've met a lot of my cancer patients that like have ignored symptoms for a long time until it's full blown cancer. It's you have kind of a responsibility to take care of what God has given you.
Right.
And when you have symptoms of something, go get them checked. Um, and I think that with Carrie having those symptoms last fall, but she chose not to. She's busy. She had a lot of friends she was taking care of and all this stuff. For
Mhm.
whatever reason, she chose not to get followed up. God knew he couldn't change that choice that she had to
Right.
go get this checked and perhaps do something about it. But he knew how devastating that this loss would be to everybody involved, and that's how I explain how Caliana Hope is here.
Yeah.
That he couldn't change this thing that was going to happen because he
Right.
gave Carrie free will, but he could make something good happen
Right.
um, in the midst of all the sadness and the sorrow.
Right.
And
A- and the thing is, you're ministering to me now, because that is a perfect way of saying it. Because my brother has cancer, And it sounds like the same cancer your dad passed away with. And he felt, my brother was feeling this way months and months before, that he was having difficulty swallowing, difficulty eating, but he never followed through on it. And
Yeah.
you know, that's water under the bridge. You're not going to say anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
But how you described it, it's just, if you're listening to this podcast, get checked. Get your heart checked.
Absolutely.
Get you checked. Get
Absolutely.
testing done. It's not. It's, you know, a lot of people say I'm fine, but you're not fine.
You're not fine. You have, yeah.
No, I get it. And so I want to wind this up with one of the things you posted. I go, dang, dude, this girl's crazy. And but you put this on your wall. God never uses anyone greatly until he tests them deeply. So let's put it this way. You're on the 10th story. Somehow you were pushed to the story that very few people are at. We're all in the basement going, how in the world can she put this? God never uses anyone greatly until he tests them deeply. So somebody watching this had probably lost their dad, probably had almost lost, no, let's put it this way. You've lost your dad. You almost lost your firstborn. Your marriage was crazy the first year at the same time. But the Lord healed that. You could see in hindsight. Then you get this miracle baby that was diagnosed with Down syndrome. But I'm looking at this baby. This baby does not look like she has Down syndrome.
She's completely healthy. She does not.
I mean, I'm not a doctor. Yeah. I have no medical thing, but that girl is perfect to me.
Yeah, she's pretty perfect. Yeah.
Okay.
She has an extra chromosome, but she's perfect.
And the day you had her, you lose your sister.
Yeah.
And then you post this. Let me into your heart. Let me into your mind. Let me in. Is there a process of surrendering? Is there a process? Because I know that God gives us the strength when we need it, not prior to it, you know.
Yeah.
So it gives us the strength that we need it. Talk to me.
My dad always said that he was a winner both ways, whether he got to be in heaven or whether he was able to stay here on this earth. Okay. God, you know, he's in heaven now. When he died, I said, I do not want his death to be in vain.
Right.
You know, I'm a 15-year-old head, almost 16-year-old head at that time. I'm like, something good has to come out of this.
Right.
Like I just, that thought just persisted. That's why I went into the medical field. That's why I specifically chose oncology.
Right.
And, you know, I've had a lot of experience with patients, you know, who had, you know, going through similar things my dad went through. Right. I've had similar talks with the kids of some of my patients who are the same age. And I'm just, my big talk with them is, do not let this be in vain. Right. Make something good. Life is good. You know, like life does not end, you know, here.
Right.
Your life goes forward. And what you do, I mean, this is a new chapter of your life, but you have to keep writing the book.
Right.
You know, like you cannot let all these horrible things be in vain, like something good. I always am looking for the something good in it.
Right. Right.
And I'm still, you know, with Rain's heart condition, you know, I remember one of my friends who is not a Christian. I remember reading in the wee hours of the morning after her heart surgery, she had posted, you know, it was like, please pray for Rain and she's doing well. And like, she's getting off her tube feeds and all this stuff. And I remember one of my friends posting, and I knew she was not a believer. Wow. I'm beginning to think that prayer does work. Mm-hmm. And that meant so much to me because I'm like, good will come out of this. Right. You know, like the life we lead in our testimony, like all this stuff, it's like Job in the Bible. Your life is falling apart. You feel like it's falling apart.
Right.
Yet God is still good. God is still good. He does not want bad things to occur. He does not cause those bad things to occur.
Right.
But how you respond to them is your testimony.
Right.
I could sit on here and name off every single bad thing that's ever happened, but that's not the good part. The good part is God is still good. Life is still good. I have this beautiful daughter. I have this beautiful family. Yeah. I got to spend time. I got to, I'm glad my dad didn't die when I was really young, because now I remember him, I can carry his legacy forward. Right. I'm glad that I got to have so many conversations those last few months with my sister because of the stupid pandemic, that's a good thing. Like, she healed so many relationships just by being home and being less stressed because she didn't have a job. Yeah. So many good things have come out of this. I'm still searching for the good that will come out of her death, and that's something I'm always looking for, though. Right. I'm never gonna quit looking for it. If I can help somebody, if her story could help someone go get checked, it's like they see the tremendous loss that we are feeling, and they see my 12-year-old niece without a mother, or my brother-in-law without a wife, and my mom grieving. It's like, hey, you know what? I don't want that to happen, and something good has to come out of it.
Right. No. No. And if you're listening to this podcast and you think someone needs to hear this podcast, please share it. And so thank you so much. It's so good to talk to you. And
good to talk to you.
Like I said, it was one morning I was on my walk and I go, I want to interview her. I really want to interview her. And I messaged her on Facebook and I go, you don't have to, you really don't. It's just something I've been thinking about and praying about. And you text me right away and said, absolutely, I want to do it. And so it's good. And we honor her sister. We continue to pray for her mother, continue to pray for the niece and her brother-in-law. I mean, the grieving is still there. The grieving is still hard.
Every day.
Sometimes we're not feeling the joy at this moment. And I always believe the grief will always be there all your life. Time does not heal. Let's put it that way. It does not heal. So thank you so much. And thank you for listening to this podcast. It was much longer because I didn't want to cut anything off on our usual podcast. God bless you, and you have a tremendous week. Bye-bye.